Welcome to the 16th episode of the Gabriel podcast. Today, my guest is J. Anthony Galiza. He is the former president of the Anime Club and Esports organization at California State University, Long Beach, and also a contributor to the Otaku Hourly broadcast they have over there. So, welcome today, Jay.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. Right now it's nighttime, 8 p.m. on the Pacific Coast here. How's your day been, man?
Usual. Nothing too special. I did go out recently. But usually for the most part, I usually just stay inside. I'm very introverted. Just like casually playing games or watching anime, as you heard from my previous titles. That's what I am, a gamer, anime fan. And also once in a while I do study a bit. I am studying project management right now, but that's pretty much it. Just daily life going on.
That is so interesting, especially the introverted part that you mentioned, because it seems like a lot of leadership roles with Cal State Long Beach. That's definitely going to be an interesting story to kind of flesh out. Like, how did you, what that experience was like for you? But maybe, let's see, anything before? Yes, maybe on a little bit on how I got to even like find you, or like why I even emailed you to kind of invite you on here. What was it? I think I've been on a recent kind of esports esports kind of journey, going through like the different colleges and then kind of exploring what their presidents' experiences have been like.
Yep.
I think it was because one day I was reading the news I was just typing on Google News, and there was this local CSU Dominguez Hills. They had they were doing some sort of mentorship program with this high school, and I just thought, you know what, it'd be really cool to kind of interview the heads of these organizations and kind of see like what kind of life they led up to the point, and I to get them to that point. And I just thought, you know what? I went to California State Long Beach. I was briefly, took part in the esports scene over there. And I thought, okay, let's hit them up. Let's see like where, who's in charge right now and like what kind of person they are, and like, yeah, like the person in charge of these organizations. And that's where I messaged you, and you were cool enough to agree to do this podcast.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you for that. Yeah, so let's go into a little bit. Maybe how would you describe, maybe like very briefly, like your experience at the Anime Club and esports.
Yeah. Sure. So my first year on college campus, looking forward to joining some clubs. We can welcome. We see all the clubs around. Definitely beforehand, actually, I've already wanted to join anime club. A big anime fan, so I looked for the anime club. The first club I found on Week of Welcome was actually esports. And yeah, I joined esports because not necessarily I was a competitive gamer, but I was looking for a gaming community to join. So I went there. Actually, luckily, the people who were at the booth at the time were players of the game I played, which was mostly Smash Bros. For now. I definitely love playing Smash Bros. And I went to esports. Esports is I would say probably the club that actually has probably some of my closest friends from college. A lot of great friends there. I had fun with the esports team, just going every single week, just playing Smash. Not necessarily leadership role yet, but I loved going right there. I did miss a couple weeks here and there for like school at the time, since I wasn't deeply involved, but esports was definitely always my mind. Every Wednesday night, I'd be like, it's esports time. I gotta go. Gotta destroy some people in Smash, even though I was pretty bad at the game at the time. Always losing, but I take I get a win every 10 days. That's good enough with me. So definitely that's one of my favorite experiences with esports, at least my first year. Just going to every meeting. And that would be the same with Anime Club. Anime Club, I actually did not find it on Week of Welcome. I actually just got a flyer through esports and had to go to the first meeting to meet the Anime Club members and the board members. Me, probably one of my biggest identities I would associate myself with, at least early on, would be like an anime fan, not even much of a gamer yet. So Anime Club was probably the club I went to the most. And even right away, I knew for sure that just because I had so much fun in the first meeting, that eventually in 4 years I would want to become president of Anime Club as well. I
Wow.
love, one of the things about me is I just love communities and I like building communities for people. Just because, which we'll probably used to touch on later, but I was very shy and introverted, and it was hard for me to find a community of people to be with. And finding an anime club in high school and a kind of gaming club as well was pretty happy for me. So when I joined college, just I saw opportunities for communities and that I can, be in a leadership role to help people find these communities. That's the thing I wanted to do the most. And by my time of second year, I applied as an intern for esports, and I got the secondary award of Anime Club because I wanted to like contribute to these gaming and anime communities so much. And as you know, heard early on, fourth year, I became president of Anime Club. And my fifth year, I became co-president of CSULB Esports, and I leaded the organizations during those times.
Very cool. That progression. It seems very definitely from a very impassioned start for that love for anime, and then also like love for those gaming communities.
Yeah.
Um, so let me think. Okay, so then how was it during your time when you were presidents for those organizations? Um, how was that experience like?
Yeah. So I'm starting with Anime Club. Just because I was the one I was Anime president first.
Mm-hmm.
During my VP years of Anime Club, I was working around. We had a bunch of changes go on as well. Usually just trying to like, make some fun enjoyment for the community of Anime Club. And I carried that on to my presidency when I became president the following year. Um, Generally, I just wanted to make more a fun environment. I actually wanted to make it, oddly enough, I wanted to make Anime Club less about anime,
Mm.
and more on the community, because back then Anime Club was about watching anime and making like watching anime with friends. But I wanted to be like a community where you met people who liked anime and you can like go with other kind of things, like maybe you met anime friends who you can talk about school with, anime friends you can talk about gaming with, other hobbies. So I actually kind of made it more or less about anime, oddly enough. I know it's kind of weird with Anime Club, but my goal was with Anime Club again was not necessarily to be a club for anime, like to watch anime or enjoy anime, but rather a community of anime lovers to like just have fun with through like various activities, events. For example, activities we have things like name an anime song, or like charades with anime shows. Events like go to Low Tokyo. Uh, we had another event I had planned, but I got canceled due to COVID. But was like a maid cafe, which is very popular in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like a just a general cafe with an anime aesthetic behind it. And yeah, generally, I just wanted to make anime club much more fun and much more community oriented. And that's I guess my biggest goals when I was running anime club was again the community aspect of it.
And how
Go
would
ahead.
you rate the how did people receive that, do you think? Were people receptive of those ideas of yours?
Yes and no, I would say, because this is something that was progressing over time. So, like I mentioned, my VP years, that was really in term. I kind of worked with the president that year to kind of make it more community based. So by the time it came to my year, my term as president, it was kind of more of it was kind of expected to be like more of a community based. We did have some new students come in, and I know like Amic Club is always one of the biggest clubs on campus when it comes to the first week. Normally we have around say like a 120 members attend the first meeting, but it drops down significantly because people are like maybe they came here for the anime or they came here for something else. Like definitely Amic Club usually is an average around at lowest like 20 members to around 40 members at its peak during like the after like the week one. Everyone just comes in and wants to visit clubs. So yeah, I would say like one thing is that some people didn't find it. Some people actually just do want to watch anime or learn more about anime or essentially just watch anime. So there are some people who weren't favored by my changes, but for those who did change or for those who did stay, they absolutely love the change. Again, many people have, at college it's so hard to make friends. Even if you make friends within your class, once that term is over, you probably never talk to them again, just
Mm-hmm.
because you lost that connection. IMIC Club is a weekly thing every single semester, and I wanted to make sure that it was a community where people can continue to make friends and have fun every single week. And that's why I made it more community based, because you need those talking opportunities to essentially make new friends rather than just watching anime as I guess a platform or a club.
Definitely, I like that. Definitely, you were hitting on definitely something with that whole like friendship thing, and because like when you go to college, you go to your classes, and you make a couple friends here and there, maybe,
Mhm.
but it's focused centrally probably on the subject. And once that
Yeah.
subject passes, then it's kind of like, sometimes you don't talk to those people ever again, and that
Yeah.
sucks because you feel like there's something there, like there was something that like that was a cool guy or like
Yeah.
cool girl or whatever, and but you just didn't have something that could survive over time, because the
Yeah.
subject ended over.
Yeah.
But definitely like having that anime club, that and that kind of like love for for that could be that sustenance for that friendship over the years.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Um, and then, hmm. Okay, and then how about esports?
So my story at esports is very, I guess, different compared to my story at Anime Club, because when I
Mm-hmm.
came to esports, I did kind of want to take a leadership role later on, but I never really planned to ever become president. And I'll explain later on why I eventually became president. But for the most part, again, I was a casual gamer. I only like playing games casually. I did try to play Smash Bros. Ultimate or Smash Bros. Wii U and Ultimate competitively, but I was never near like any top level, whatever, that kind of area. I always was losing. For those of you who watch Smash, I was an O2er. For those who know what that means, basically, you go to a tournament, it's double elimination. You just get eliminated right away. You lose both matches. So
Oh no.
that's how good I was. Better than average player, but nowhere good as competitive. But the reason why I kept going was not for the competitive aspect, but because I made friends there. And I kept going. My second year, third year, I was pretty much going every single week now, rather than like just missing a couple. Even if I had homework, projects, whatever, I would finish them ahead of time. So then I'd be like, I had time for esports now. And because I made such good friends there, esports was definitely a place that I just wanted to help out with a lot. Eventually, in my second year, like I mentioned, I did take an esports internship role where I can kind of help out with essentially the fighting game community. Not necessarily all the fighting games, but more just Smash. But I was under the category of fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I just kept helping out my second, third year, and even my fourth year. I was just someone who helped out with the fighting game branch of esports and helping grow essentially the Smash community. And I had so much fun with that. Of course, my focus was Anime Club, so I wasn't taking any leadership roles yet in esports. Um, Around by the time I finished my fourth year of college, that was when I was president of Anime Club. I eventually did pass on the presidency to someone else. His name is Ryan. He became the next president after me for Anime Club. With that in mind, I had a new opportunity for a leadership role, and I saw one pop up. Esports was looking for some new board members, so wanting to try out a new platform, I became the secretary of esports in the fall semester. Um, Basically because I just wanted to help out. Not necessarily president yet, but esports meant I had more involvement. Being there to take meeting notes, work with plans, give some input, advice, work with everyone, all single branches like the fighting game branch, the shooting game branch, League of Legends, even virtual reality, all those people. Not necessarily an expert in them, but being able to talk with each of them and provide the communities for those who want it. Like I don't really play League of Legends. I don't really I even say I wouldn't care much about League of Legends, but I do love people who love playing League of Legends and want to find a community of friends for League of Legends. So I want to make sure that, with League of Legends or shooting games, VR, people can find those people to play with. And having a higher leadership role gave me this opportunity to essentially become, a higher leadership role secretary, just provide all these events that people love. Um, I will say though, a little kind of sad that it was an online semester. So it was a pandemic semester, by the way, I should
Mm-hmm.
mention. My fourth year of Anime Club also ended in a pandemic. I was president during when the pandemic started in March. So I was president that year. So I ended my presidency in a pandemic, and I started my esports secretary role in a pandemic as well. So it was kind of hard, but I did enjoy my time there helping out. I would say that I was still very unsure with esports, mainly because again, I don't have too much experience with esports, but I do want to help out. And yeah, that's pretty much my term with esports as a secretary. Eventually, the following semester, so the reason why I became co-president is because the person who was president during the fall semester, she actually graduated in the fall semester, so they need a
Mm-hmm.
new role. Uh, and since we didn't necessarily have a president to take over in the spring of the semester, if we didn't have a president, the club would die. Um, so, and we have all these amazing teams. I heard our Call of Duty team was popping off, our Valorant team popping off, a Watch team doing so well as well. League of Legends, Smash also is trying out. All these teams doing very well right now. And if we didn't have a president, all the teams just fought through in the spring semester. So we needed someone to step up, and I took that role of stepping up to become president. I did it more for my love of esports and the gaming community. Again, I apologize to like all the esports people in the scene. I couldn't really advance our program because I it felt too risky for someone with so little experience in esports to see advance our collegiate program, things like that. But my goal was to keep it alive and to make sure that you guys can keep playing games and essentially to support the community still. So my goal as president was not only just keep it alive, but also to support the community in many ways as possible. And that's essentially why I became co-president. I personally left so as a co-president, I have another president, of course. Again, she was the former president, but she graduated. But she was lucky enough, still wanted to help out with the scene. So she handled all the external parts of the club, our collegiate connections, all that, our competitive teams, while I handled like managing our club internally and our community. So luckily, I had someone as amazing as her run the club as well, and help the esports scene still progress, even though we had a leader like me who had no idea what esports was for the most part. But generally, again, my focus was to keep esports alive and to make sure that the scene, the community in general, the gaming community had someone to go to during a pandemic period. And that's essentially what my role as co-president of esports was during that time. And yeah, that's pretty much all I did for esports. I hosted some events, made sure the community felt welcome. Some people who love games come in, and generally make sure that I know it's weird to say this, but I kind of didn't expect my semester to go well. So what I did was I at least spent most of my semester as a practice semester, a setting up semester, because fall semester will also be online. So we do a lot more testing, see how things worked out, and I'll pass out the information to the next president, who, by the way, is very amazing. Good job. I love what she's doing right now. She's gonna take all my notes of all the mistakes I made, all the things I learned, and apply them for the upcoming fall semester. And that's basically what I did with esports as a leader.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Definitely. Because at least my understanding of the esports scene, at least when I was there, it was like, I mean, there's like very much that community portion of like people that just like playing games.
Yeah.
It's kind of it gave me similar vibes to like the anime, club, where it's like people are attracted by this like common thing, very general thing, and then esports club kind of, or yeah, kind of was like just all these different communities put into one umbrella. Um, so I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm definitely the collegiate and like the super competitive scene is in there, but also just every gaming community is also part there. Like
Yeah.
so and that's like I feel like where you flourish there, like kind of helping communities have a place where they can gather and kind of make friends, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that was my goal. Just provide a community for people to make some friends in a similar interest. In this case, it would be gaming.
Yeah, so there's a lot of um things that kind of go hand in hand with your experience with like the anime club and also the esports scene there. What how was it like, because I'm assuming like organizing, were you always was that very natural to you, kind of organizing and like managing different aspects of an organization?
I would say like both yes and no. Just because around then I was still trying to develop my leadership skills. Actually during my 5th year when I became esports secretary, I actually joined a leadership academy on campus, and I started developing my leadership skills.
Yeah.
So that's how I started working on. And even after I graduated, I started learning some more project management skills as well. But working with Anime Club and being a communication studies major, I did study organizational communication as well, and how to like organize communication in a business environment, and starting communication stuff in general. And even though I didn't have as developed leadership skills yet, I did apply some leadership skills in Anime Club or other things I worked in as well. Even in group projects, I was often a leader for it. So I definitely had that kind of experience when it came to like leading esports. Yeah, and that's why I was able to become essentially co-president. I was fine with leading everything. I wasn't perfect, obviously, still learning as over time, but I did my best, and I promised that I did my hardest work when I was working with esports and make sure that everything was going pretty well throughout the entire semester I was leading it.
What do you believe makes a good leader?
Uh, my biggest term would be communication. Often, often as a leader, you're not especially the most, like, I guess, say the most intelligent person in the environment, in the, I guess, organization. As communication, you also rely on your other people who you know have other specialties. So communicating with like their expectation, roles, responsibilities, all that kind of stuff. Make sure they're aware of stuff, because even if you can't specialize in that kind of area, other people can. So say, for example, League of Legends, I don't play that game whatsoever, but being able to communicate with the branch manager specifically is very important. Like, hey, here are my roles, expectations, and here's your responsibility for that. Here's what I want you to do, making it very clear, communicating clear your expectations, and then putting a trust in them that they can accomplish their task, even though, because I can't do it. I don't know how to hold League of Legends events. So by communicating and putting trust in them, it's very important to essentially put a lot of trust in them and communicate your expectations very clearly. That's why I say communication is very important. And in general, communication is also very important in other aspects as well. One of the most things you want to do is make sure people feel valued in communication in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Things like, wow, nice job in the tournament, nice job with things like nice job with the spreadsheet, nice job with tournament stuff. Communication always makes people feel valued, and that's also one of the most important things. So there are various important aspects of being a leader, but I think communication is one that is that term that puts them all together. And yeah, definitely, I'd say this communication is probably the most important thing of a leader.
Okay. What are some of the things you learned while being president?
Um, there are so many things that that came up, because as a person with a very, like, well, let's say, like, not developed the leadership skills, like undeveloped leadership skills, you learn throughout as you go. One of the things is to make, like I mentioned, communication, make expectations clear. Often, I'd give out tasks, and if the people don't understand it clearly, sometimes it may be their fault, but often it's sometimes your own fault, which you need to understand at times. Like, maybe you didn't word it properly, because each person has a different way of interpreting information. In terms of, like, the communication model, how you often like interpret or provide information isn't often how they receive information. So you often want to work with them, communicate them over time, see how they take in information, and essentially work with them that way, understand their communication style, and provide instructions clearly. At times, I'll be like, hey, can I have this assignment done? And they interpret assignment differently, and they got the work done differently. So the important thing, again, is just to make it clear: expectations, roles, responsibilities, and that's definitely one thing you want to take account of, is making things communicating things clearly. But also, one thing is, I wouldn't say necessarily, I definitely learned it, and something I'm still working on is being able to accept change and adapt to it. No matter how perfect you are, plans will always go wrong. And the thing is that with me is that whenever I make plans, I like to plan it like rigidly, like has to be on the point, all that. But the problem with that is when something goes wrong, you don't really necessarily have a plan B, and things just fall apart. So as I make more mistakes, I learn, like, I need to have plan Bs, plan Cs, plan Ds. Things will always go wrong. You can't expect yourself to just be perfect, because you have a very detailed spreadsheet, you have 45-page essay on how you want to plan an event. Things will go wrong no matter what you do. So always have a plan B, C, D, E, F. And one of the most important things I learned in event planning class is plan to fail. When you plan to fail, you know what can go wrong, and you can make some alternate courses or options or choices from there and see how you can improve it. So adapting is definitely one of the things that I'm still working on, because I'm still very rigid in my planning. But as I mentioned earlier, communication, I have other people to rely on. They'll support my back, and they'll be the ones to help me come up with other options, as I'm still trying to learn to become better at adapting.
Okay. What was the toughest part about being president?
Toughest part being president. When it came to being president of Anime Club, the toughest part of being president was the fact that I had no leadership experience. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm very introverted, so I didn't really take any leadership roles, any major leadership roles until like Anime Club. It was all just too passion. So president of Anime Club, my hardest part was essentially not being experienced as a leader yet, just running purely on ideas, passion. I had some, I guess, leadership skills, like I mentioned, like project management. I can do that kind of stuff, but just being a general leader and supporting my team as best as possible. I did have some problems with my Anime Club board over time, trying to get some work done. But I can also just blame part of it due to my fault of not being a very effective leader yet, learning how to effectively communicate with them, make things clear to them, and definitely just trying to make sure that I just made sure to support them as much as possible. And having very undeveloped skills, or just more of learning leadership skills throughout my presidency was definitely a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
Most people when they take up a president role for any club, they often have some kind of leadership skills beforehand, even high school or maybe volunteer work. For me, again, I was an introvert. I wasn't very social at all until like college. So developing that leadership skills was definitely the biggest challenge for me as the anime club president. When it came to esports, quite the opposite instead. Like I consider myself a very anime expert, but when it comes to esports, like I mentioned, I'm not very familiar with esports, collegiate stuff like that. So becoming the president of esports, hardest part of me was esports. Just leading that. But luckily, again, I had a co-president and a team's coordinator who was very effective at that kind of stuff. So I put the trust in them. Here's my expectations. Here's your role. Here's your responsibilities, and to get this handled. And having my leadership skills being developed through the Leadership Academy and as my trial program with Anime Club, I was able to have that handled a little more effectively. But just that part of me was a little worried about like, how do I run an esports org? Because I have no idea what esports is. So it definitely wasn't a major problem in esports, like over on org, since I had like people helping me out. But personally, it was a large challenge because I was unfamiliar with that field overall. And I'm just a casual gamer who just wants to support the casual gaming community. But I'm here as a co-president now because I want to keep the community alive, and I want to support all these teams who've been working hard in the fall semester to make sure they can keep working hard again in the spring semester. And yeah, just having so little experience in the field of esports was definitely the largest challenge for me as the esports president during that term.
Okay. Yeah. That's all really cool. Hmm. Okay. So so after you have you had those, well, okay, I want to make a comment first on the anime club president thing. Well,
Yeah,
that was really cool then, because it's one of those things where it's kind of like, experience with leadership. It's like, I feel like, as somebody, you always have to start somewhere, like,
yeah,
with zero experience. And so, you kind of, going into that role, it's a really cool story to kind of like see and witness like unfold. Like, you went in there with just a very like raw passion for the field, or
yeah,
for the subject, and you were looking to do good. And I think that, I mean, that's two important components of what makes a good leader. That they're passionate about what they're doing, and they have an intent for good, for
yeah,
the community. And I think that using those two concepts as your kind of north star, to guide you during that presidency, like, definitely I think did you well, and did
yeah,
anime club well. So hats off to you for the stuff that you were able to do there.
yeah.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah. um so interesting. So I want to go into a little bit, um maybe into a little bit, I guess into the past a little bit. um how are you like as a kid?
Yeah, I'm quite different as a kid from what I am now. My interests were still the same, anime and gaming. Actually, gaming more of it. I was playing anime as I progressed in my childhood. But as a kid, I was very quiet. So I was essentially every year until like high school, I was known as a quiet kid. Like people knew me as the person who never talked in class, never wanted to talk. Even when taking leadership roles, when it came to like presenting, I was very quiet and stiff. I didn't want to, go up at all. Uh, Very shy, didn't want to do any of that. I just stood back, and most of what I did throughout my grade school and middle school career was just essentially just study and play games. I was one of those nerds who like had to get straight A's. I got straight A's pretty much for most of my high school or middle school life. I did get a couple B's, but generally very smart student, or not really smart, hardworking student. And even then, like my parents were very strict to me as a child. I was not allowed to watch TV or play video games on weekdays, not counting Fridays. After class, I was allowed to, of course. So Monday to Thursdays, strict on school, always school, all that. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that would be all gaming. Just because now I can finally play games again. I did watch a couple TV shows, but wasn't much on TV yet. In fact, I will say this right now: as a kid, I thought anime was stupid. I was like, anime? What is anime? This is all weird. Every time I see anime, I'm like, this is just some of the weirdest stuff ever. I will probably never get into anime ever in my life. Ever, ever, ever. Anime gonna avoid that. There's no way I'm gonna get into anime. So right now I'm into gaming, just playing a bunch of games. And yeah, throughout middle school, again, just a quiet kid, introverted, didn't want to talk with people for the most part. Had a couple friends here and there, but for the most part, I just kept to myself, very quiet. Um, and that's pretty much, I guess, there's not much to my childhood because all I did was study and play games
Right.
until middle school. Yeah, and that's the basic gist of my, I guess, grade school to middle school era. If that's all you want to explore for there right now.
What was your favorite subject when you were a kid, like really young
Uh,
kid?
Favorite subject was definitely math. Big nerd in math. I'll just say right now, I know we're gonna get to later, but high school, college, absolutely hated math. But in grade school, middle school, pretty good at math. I tried out for like some math team stuff in middle school. I wanted to be very proficient in math. And when I grew up, I wanted to be an engineer. Because math engineer is often associated when you're a young student. So I was aiming to be an engineer. Math was pretty much my best subject. I also did love science and history. English was quite a struggle for me, but I still often got the B's there, sometimes A. And at the time, my biggest passion, I forgot about this. My biggest passion at the time, because I forgot about it, because I ditched it in college, was music. I studied a bunch of music.
Ah.
I played the flute very passionately. I would practice my flute every single day. Yeah, I joined what do you call concert band in middle school. Flute was my passion. I'll get more into this later on in high school, but I did learn piano and joined the marching band. So music was definitely one of the biggest parts of my life when I was young. In terms of like something to explore. If I didn't become an engineer, I would want to become like a musician on the side, something like that. So music was definitely my one of my biggest passions with math. Going to your question, being my best subject or favorite subject in school.
That is that is quite fascinating. Okay, let me think. Okay, so interesting. So you mentioned that math was your favorite subject, and then you also mentioned around what time did you associate like that when you wanted to grow up, like you wanted to be an engineer, like around like elementary school grade, like or like
Uh,
later?
I'll play somewhere around like the end of second grade. Because I was still very new to school, and I was like a struggling student back when I was in second grade. When I became third grade is when I became like an A student. Second grade, I actually went to summer school because I was still struggling in classes.
Mm-hmm.
But after that kind of summer school experience, third grade, I started becoming like a straight A student for the most part. Doing my best. The only part I was ever like satisfactory in was because of my speaking skills, because I never talked in class, never asked questions, never participated. But when it came to content and content and the course material, I was very onto it. A plus student. Usually you would get A's in all tests. But yeah, pretty much. Because in second grade, eventually I started becoming like really good at math. And in second grade you have those like speed tests where you got to
Oh,
solve like 100 math questions or like math addition, subtraction, questions as fast as possible.
yeah.
I started competing myself, and I wanted to get that the highest level of math skill. So I saw like I was stuck in the third best or the second best level for like so long. I wanted to become the first best level, and when it came to like addition and subtraction, so I kept competing, kept practicing math, and eventually, I became one of the best students in that class. And then, finally got the highest rank in addition. And from there, I'm like, maybe I'm good at math. I can do 2 plus 2 pretty quickly, so I might be an engineer in the future. Yeah, essentially becoming good at school in second grade, and then advancing and become one of the best students in the class in third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. I do that. Maybe I had to potentially become an engineer and be really good at math. So that's why I made my focus was math and music was my main focuses throughout my middle school and grade school career.
How are you? How were you introduced to music?
Um, so in third grade, we had like a what do you call it, like some kind of assembly in like the auditorium where they introduced some musicians. There were a bunch of musicians telling them about their story, playing musical instruments. We had a bunch of instruments pop up, like violins, clarinets, trumpets. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I want to get to music. And then this one guy stepped up with a flute, and I heard him play the flute. I'm like, I want that instrument to be my instrument. I don't know why, but it just sounded so beautiful that I wanted to be a flute player. Sadly, in third grade, they actually don't allow third graders to play the flute because they think like, third graders have weak like vocal cords, whatever, like to blow air. Uh, So they only allow string instruments to be played by third graders. You have to be a fourth grader to start playing music. So I know reluctantly I waited 1 year because I didn't want to play the violin. I wanted only the flute. Fourth grade came by and I was so excited. I waited for the music program to start again. I'm like, first thing I see it, flute signing up. Went to the music store, I rented the flute, and yeah, I just became very passionate in the flute. And in fact, in fourth grade, I was the only flute player who was there. We had 3 flute players in my fourth grade class, but 2 of them dropped out because I don't know the real reason why. But I know for sure. Like I went to a what do you call it, music practice rehearsal, and there were 3 of us there. But then he actually told me to leave because the other 2 were so far behind in their their practice.
Oh wow.
And the following week, he told me, "Hey, instead of joining the flute class, I'm going to have you join the other woodwind instruments and play with them because they're progressing a little further." So eventually, I went there, and he kind of just canceled over the flute class, and now instead of having like a 1 hour woodwind class, it was now a 2 hour woodwind class because after the woodwind class would normally be the flute class, but since all the other flute players were kicked out and I was the only one left, he did move me to the woodwind class, and I just started playing flute from there, and then yeah,
How
that's
so?
Go
How is
ahead.
that possible that you were advanced? Because wasn't that like your first time playing?
More like advanced to a group that was performing a little faster in the beginner group, I would say, at least not necessarily advanced levels, but to a group that was practicing a little more as well. I was moved to.
Right, but like, how was your experience? Because wasn't that your first time playing, like,
Yeah, that was
ever?
my first time playing the flute. Yeah, I guess the other
Interesting.
2 just weren't practicing as much.
Oh, okay,
Maybe it's one of those times where like, oh, my parents want me to play the piano and just practice music, that kind of stuff.
gotcha.
Maybe they weren't as passionate as me, because my parents actually did not want me to get into music. They thought music was expensive. Even my brother was like, just play the violin, it's much cheaper. So coming in, I was definitely very passionate about playing the flute at least, and I wanted to practice all the time. So I guess I progressed a little quicker than he expected, and he had to like move me away for 1 week and put me into the group that was slightly faster in practicing, but still beginner level.
Got you. Um and how was it, do you think, like, kind of learning the flute? Was it kind of like, was it frustrating, or was it very much like, very fun for you?
In terms of grade school, like playing the flute, it was pretty much fun. I didn't find it frustrating at all. It was my first time playing music instrument in general, so learning how the keys work, how the instrument work, all that kind of stuff was kind of difficult. But again, I was a nerd in grade school, trying to straight everything. I practiced all that, got it ready. Grade school, flute was no problem for me at all. It was all beginner stuff, and I just kind of just enjoyed it, had some fun. No really real sugar, well, at least no long-term struggles when it came to playing the flute.
Okay, cool. But you stuck on with it, huh? Because it seemed you went on to keep playing with the flute.
Yeah, in middle school and high school, I did continue middle school. That's when I actually started struggling more on because we had a little more advanced music. First year, second year was fine. With third year, that's when I started reaching like my, I guess, skill cap. Kind of struggled a bit, but I still played music a bit, still loved music. So when I went to high school, I really joined the marching band. I had some fun there. But my first day in the marching band, I walked in. He was like, "Here's your sheet music." I looked at him like, "How am I gonna do this? What is this sheet here?" It was so lost. And then he played the music in the background for like the entire band to hear. I'm like, this is so advanced. And he went up like, "Hey, was anyone like not prepared to join this class? Was not expecting this?" I'm like, let me raise my hand a bit. um, but yeah, by the time I joined marching band in ninth grade, I definitely felt like, back in grade school, I was like the top of my class. But in high school, I was definitely like the one of the bottom people in my marching band, and I struggled to keep up. And that's when I kind of like lost a little passion in music. I was switching to something else a bit. I was still in the math zone, so I still focused a little more on math overall. I didn't find my true passion yet, which I found in college. But music started dying around 10th grade, and I started like focusing more on math around 10th grade as I started dropping. Oh, math and Japanese were the 2 I was focusing on actually. Yeah. So as I lost interest in music, I started going into math and Japanese as like things I wanted to focus on in terms of like my studies.
Right. That's fascinating. We also, I found out that we went to the same high school, and actually around the
Yeah.
same time as well. Um, at Long Beach Polytechnic High School.
Yep.
Um, how did Japanese come into the conversation?
Yep. So I kind of did skip over this in middle school, but I remember how in grade school I mentioned I hated anime. Well, anime was my introduction to Japanese, and the reason why I got into anime was in eighth grade. Um, just one of my closest friends were like, "Hey, you should watch this anime series." I'm like, "But it's anime." But uh, well, I ended up watching it because all my friends were watching it. So like, I felt like I wanted to be part of the friend group. Again, I was an introvert, but I still wanted to become a little more, I guess, social. So
Mhm.
because like my close friends at the time were all these anime fans, I gave in and then watched anime. And my first anime ever, you probably don't know the title, but for people watching, it's Katekyo Hitman Reborn. It's an action shonen series. But I'm gonna skip over that. Generally, that's what got me to anime. And in ninth grade or in eighth grade, I started becoming more obsessed with anime. Uh, After finishing that first anime, I had my friend recommend me more animes, and I just kept getting into it. And I just fell in love with the language and the culture. So when I went to ninth grade high school, I learned that Japanese was an option to learn as a study. Like you're required to learn 2 years of a language in high school, anyways. So when I saw the options, being the anime fan I am now, I had to choose Japanese because like I wanted to just be that person who was like, I can watch anime without the English subtitles now. So that was my main motivation for studying Japanese was because I wanted to watch anime without subtitles. And I'm pretty sure that's a lot of reason that's a lot of motivation for why a lot of people start anime. And that's how I got into Japanese, just because I wanted to watch anime.
That is absolutely hilarious because I was a big anime like watcher as well.
Yeah.
Um and I did watch Katekyo Hitman Reborn.
Oh.
I absolutely loved that one. I I hated the fact that they never really finished it.
Yeah.
That was like that always hurt me. I'm like, why? Just finish the show. There's the
Yeah,
manga
please.
panels already.
It's a
Um,
content.
I know. I love that absolutely.
Yeah.
I was like man, I was like one of those people that just watched like the big three.
Oh, okay.
Um, I literally like watched all of like One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto, and then
Yeah.
after I finished all of them, um, which actually does take a while to go through One
Yeah, yeah,
Piece.
yeah.
I think I did that all in middle school, and
Hmm.
then what was it? And then I did watch I think Hatake Men Reborn is like the fourth like shonen
Yeah.
anime, which is relatively long too. It's like about 100 or so episodes.
About 203 episodes, just because I
200.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that. It was a pretty, it had its length as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. I love that show. And that, funnily enough, that was behind the same reasoning, like why I took Japanese for 4 years at Poly,
Yeah.
because of that, just wanting to, because of anime, and
Yeah.
but well, that was the starting point. But the more and more I learned about Japanese culture, I realized like, wow, that, you know, I like Japanese culture. There's something about you know their respect, politeness, the cleanliness, and just the
The
beauty in
general
the
culture.
language. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I really resonated with that a lot, and that's why I took that. So, did you take Japanese just for the 2 years, kind of
I
thing?
actually took it all 4 years.
Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. I thought I was pretty good at Japanese, so I took 5, 6 honors, and then went to AP Japanese. And yeah,
Um,
I thought I consider myself one of the best Japanese students in my classes at that time, and I think my classmates would agree. I studied Japanese very intensely. I'm always the one who would always finish homework early on. I was like that nerd again. Like I don't know, remember when you had Watson, but she had like those panels like scores that you had to fill out overtime. I don't know if she did that my semester or your semester. But essentially you'd have to complete like I would say maybe around not know exactly sure, like maybe like 9 out of the 50 squares by like a fourth period. Um
mm.
yeah, I would finish like 8 out of 9 squares in the first week. Just to get out of the way. Like I was that kind of nerd to get the homework done early. Because I would even read ahead in the textbook, and that's why I was just like one of the that top performing students in my class. I was far from the best actually. I just remember now there were like people who are way better than me. But in terms of like performing and like work ethic, I was definitely at the top of the class when it came to like work ethic in that class.
Right. That is so fascinating. Yeah, I took AP Japanese as well, and yeah, I was not anywhere close to that work ethic. Yeah, that is so interesting. It's always nice to have like a person like that because like I don't know, they contribute to like the learning environment. I feel just
Yeah.
having like people that are really, I don't know, like just really invested. I mean, everyone is invested to a certain degree. Why they took like AP Japanese, but like there are people that are like, I don't know, just like really into it, and it's always really fun to kind of see like their progress and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was interesting to see many of the people who are passionate Japanese. I just felt weird because they're like, "Oh, I'm passionate about Japanese because I'm very invested in the culture." I'm like, I just want to watch anime without subtitles. That's my motivation for studying Japanese. And I felt so underwhelming compared to all these other students who were like actually had a. I'm not gonna say like mine wasn't a real reason, but like quote unquote like real reason to study Japanese
Uh
was because of like that was their motivation. It's just so different from mine.
right. So
Yeah.
so uh, so how was the interesting? And so you enjoyed like learning like Japanese because that's a rather like, yeah, it's a one of the more difficult languages to kind of get a hold of.
Yeah, I know it's very hard language to learn, but again, my motivation was anime, and I just wanted to become really good. I did struggle in AP Japanese and Fastest Honor, but I was mostly through kanji. Just
Yes.
writing out the kanji, memorizing all that. But when it came to like grammar and even vocab, that's something that I could generally grasp pretty quickly because like with vocab, like, I remember this. I remember this word from an anime, and I could just like associate that visual imagery with the word, and I had a way to visualize it for the most part. And when it came to even grammar, like even though like most anime is more casual speech, generally you can hear like some structures being repeated in anime that I can hear like in grammar classes or in grammar lessons in Japanese class. So it was pretty much easy for that. They don't teach you kanji in like anime, so that's why I struggle there.
Yeah.
um,
I the kanji always got to me. I remembered the summer homework that we received for before we got into AP Japanese. It was like this
oh
thick
yeah, yeah,
packet
yeah. I
of
remember
like,
those.
yeah, like a hundreds, like a lot of kanji, and
Mm,
yeah, I don't know, kanji. It's just something where you just gotta. It's one of those things you just gotta keep going at it. It's like it's not.
yeah,
It's yeah. So
it's a real grind. Go ahead.
how so did you accomplish your goal? Were you able to
Watch anime without subtitles?
yes.
No, I was not. Even now today's which I'll probably go on when we get to college, but I also eventually gave up on Japanese and I found what is my current passion now when it comes to like what I'm trying to do right now. But when I was studying Japanese in high school, my goal was just to become better at Japanese and recognize a bunch of terms when I watched anime. And sometimes I can like just close my eyes, and be like I know what they're saying, things like kind of that.
Right.
But I wasn't perfect yet. I was far from not needing subtitles. It's more like once in a while I hear a phrase, I'm like, "Yo, konnichiwa." I know what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because I had the same kind of similar experience. I was like, I took 4 years in Japanese in high school, and finally, I continued Japanese actually for a little bit in college at Cal State for like 2 years, but um, just because I was like didn't exactly know what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like right now, I still like kind of sometimes close my eyes and like listen, and I'm like, I try to guess sometimes, like, okay, like what did they say, and you get like the gist. I'm like at that point where like I kind of like get a good percentage chance of like what they're trying to say,
Yeah.
but yeah, nowhere near as fluent as
Yeah.
as I could be. Okay, interesting. And okay, so then food, math. So what happened to math? Because you mentioned that around 10th grade your love for music was kind of waning off,
Yeah.
and then it was picking up Japanese and math. So what's the deal with math?
So math has always been my biggest strength. Grade school, middle school, pretty good at math. Even my first 2 years of high school, I was pretty good at math. So I still consider like when I become, when I go to college, what my major will probably be engineering or business. Still focusing on engineering right now as pretty good at math. But then 11th grade hit, and that's when the term calculus came into play. And I know pre-cal and calculus are quite different subjects, but I still just felt it the same because they had the word calculus in it. And taking pre-calculus, that's when I truly started struggling in math. And again, that's where I reached my cap in math. Um, I was struggling with the subject so much. I still passed the class, so no worries about that. I still got a B in it. Or yeah, I still got the B in it. But to me, a B minus, borderline C plus was not good enough yet. I was still kind of a nerd. That changed entirely in college. But I was not gonna accept the B minus, and I thought like I was just struggling a lot. And seeing how like I was just doing so good in Japanese, getting A's, being like top performing, I had a motivation too because of anime. As I struggled with pre-calculus, like kind of struggling a bit, but I kept going. I still loved math a bit. I still consider being an engineer in the future. Maybe I just had hit a roadblock for a while. In fact, one of the biggest reasons why I kept going is because, in my opinion, everyone agrees with me for this, by the way, is that I just didn't have a good teacher, and sometimes the teacher like changes everything. For the time being, I actually blamed it on the teacher rather than my own skills right now at the moment. So I went to calculus, AP calculus specifically. Went there. I
Nice
took
to
the
meet
first
you.
test. Dimitri, yeah, Michi. So you experienced Michi, right?
Yeah, I took that
Yeah.
class too. That was one of the APs that I took in my senior year, and
Mhm.
oh man, like I think that was. I mean, I also considered myself like a straight A student, like all the way up till middle school and all the way up until junior year. I was like a pretty straight A student with, funnily enough, only I had a B in English in all my years.
Yeah.
And it was always 89%. It was actually insane.
Yeah.
Um, Very frustrating. But then senior year hit and calculus. I it was one of those classes. I mean, that just fell off the wayside with all the other
Yeah.
APs.
Yeah.
I it was terrible to my self identity because I got like a C in that class. I thought I was gonna fail that class actually.
Yeah.
But I somehow passed with a C, and it was mostly just because like I did not have the time to dedicate to like learning these new concepts because calculus is like a new like language almost, like it's
Yeah.
like, so it's like you have to like dedicate time to like get the foundations correct. But I just was there was no time management in senior year for me. So
Yeah.
so how was the calculus experience?
Just to go over quickly, I took calculus, took my first exam. I got an A in it, I think, my first exam. And saw a lot of people dropping out because usually by the first exam, a lot of people fail, and that's when they choose to drop out. So I felt very confident going to AP calculus, but as unit 2 came in, and then unit 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I started getting D's and everything. I was struggling understanding it. When I took the final exam for the midterm, for the mid semester, like in December-ish, I think January, we transitioned. I actually did a pretty bad job. I think I got an F on it. I ended the class with a C, and people were like, "But you can still, pass. You still make it through." But by then, that's when I was like, "This is it. This is the end of my math career." And I dropped out of AP Calculus for the next term. I went to finite math, and well, I had fun on finite math, being so easy. In fact, just a fun joke. I always mess around with my AP Calc friend. The first like 3 months of my finite math class was focused on dog sledding. Don't ask why that was involved in lectures.
What?
But having your studies, your math be focused on dog studying rather than math was pretty fun, and was a big change of pace. But by then, I was just done with AP Calculus, trying to figure out what to do. But I was still doing pretty good in Japanese. As I moved into college, I graduated. My first plan, actually, I technically went into college undeclared, but I chose to start as a Japanese major because I knew I wanted to minor in Japanese. My studies. I wanted like my advisors to direct me towards more Japanese culture oriented classes with like my GEs, which is what I chose as the major first before I switch on. So I in my last year of high school, I dropped out of math. I canceled my engineering career and focused on. I was at the moment my highest priority was business, but I was still like not sure how business worked at the moment because we don't have like directly business classes in high school. So I
Yeah.
wanted to do that for exploration. So I started off as a Japanese major when I went to college, and that's pretty much how my math career ended, was through AP Calculus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. um but that's really interesting. the at least the parallels
Yeah.
with the yeah, like the parallels with Japanese, like math and Japanese. Yeah. So how many years did you take Japanese in college?
In college. So I took 4 years in high school. When I went to college, I actually took even though like I was a Japanese major at the time, I actually did not take Japanese my first year, my first semester. My second semester I started with Japanese 102 because I was supposed to go to 201, but I thought I was rusty with the semester break.
Right.
So I went to 102, took 201, 202, then I took 301 and 311 at the same time. And yeah, that was very stressful.
Yeah.
um Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't remember what my last class. I think it was in the I think it might have been the 300.
202. Oh, 300s.
Yeah, because I remembered I was going in and then I was speaking. They, I think they do like a pre-test to kind of
Yeah,
see
yeah.
like what my level was, and I think they were saying something like I think they wanted me to go to one. I actually don't remember the timeline of this. They definitely did want me to go to 102, but then I was advocating for like just to go to the 200 level classes because
Yeah.
I went through like the whole 4 years in high school and like AP Japanese and stuff like that. So I was like,
Yep.
I was like relatively like I was just like, yeah. So I think I did go to the 200 level class, and then I struggled definitely then, even like then. I think I got like a B in that class, and then I think I did the 300. I think I stopped in 300. The first in that class in that level, and I
Yeah.
think that was the one where you had to like start to write paragraphs and like essays in like
Yeah.
Japanese, and
Yeah.
I at that point I was like, yeah, okay, this is progressing farther than what my abilities could like
Yeah.
conjure. I mean, even in English, I was already like didn't like timed essays.
Yeah.
But then you had to like write essays in Japanese. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this is not gonna work.
Yeah.
So I kind of bowed out after that level. I was like,
Yeah.
remember, like, what was the whole point of this? And I was like, oh yeah, it was like for anime, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think I've done, my part in that goal, and I can leave satisfactory, enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So after that 300 level,
Yeah.
you kind of just
I took 301 through 11, and that's when I truly began struggling because I took two Japanese classes in one. 301 is advanced Japanese, and
mm,
311 is advanced speaking Japanese.
mm,
So I took both at the same time, and the hardest part of that is they were basically so both classes were Tuesday Thursdays with like a 1 hour gap between them. So I had back to back Japanese every Tuesday Thursdays, and the hardest part of that is also they're both basically different classes. So that means each class would have it's each sets of like 50 kanjis each. So not was I wasn't just studying like 15 kanji a week. I was studying 100 kanji every week now because you had the 50 for 301 and the 50 for 311, and often they didn't overlap because they were treated as different classes.
right.
Um, so I was struggling. I cried every week. Yeah, and in fact, I remember after taking one of the chapter tests, I literally remember walking out at 301, uh, and one of the person next to me was actually started crying. And I'm like, I was also like in tears. I wasn't crying, but I was like, oh man, that was a hard test. And the worst part is
Oh.
like during finals week, you know how schedules, finals and fresh schedules are a little differently. Um, Oddly enough, 301 and 311 were back to back. There was not even a 2 hour gap. They were back to back. So I came up crying for 301. I'm like, and now I have to go back to take 311 during the next class and then
No.
cry again as I walk out.
Oh my
So
god.
after that experience with 301 and 311, I didn't give up yet. I thought maybe it's because I was taking two classes. So the next semester I took 302 by itself, and that was worse than 301 and 311.
What
um,
was 302 about? Is that
that's advanced Japanese number two, I guess I would say.
oh, okay.
So 302 was just a lot harder. At that time, so just generally it's harder. I'm not gonna go over my whole entire story with that, but it's harder. But one of the funniest moments I did was that, well, first of all, one what I did is after one test, I just noticed that I was just falling so far behind. I actually went to the teacher and be like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be pseudo dropping out of this class. And what I mean by pseudo dropping out is that it's more like I rather get the F than the W. So I didn't withdraw from the class. So I told him that I just no longer want to attend class, but I still want the F. Don't give me a W. That's more because of like what do you call part-time status, kind of like financial aid kind of stuff. And I had a pretty high GPA, so my grade was pretty much safe. So I think I thought that the F was not as gonna hit hard as the W. So I chose the F instead. But so I should have dropped out, but I still went to classes once in a while for like just to get more information, insight, and language. And I actually went to the final for 302. Even though I didn't attend the class for 2 months. And that was one of the funniest things I did was when I went to the final, I went there. People were like, "Whoa, you're back!" Most people didn't know I dropped out, by the way, so they thought I was like self-studying when I did the final. So I went in and took the final. I did the first. There was like 4 pages. Did the first page very easy. I looked at the second page, and not only was it hard to answer, but I couldn't even read the question because the question was in Japanese. So I don't even know how to like quote unquote like BS my way through it because I couldn't read the question. So I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I looked at the test. I'm like, what is it trying to ask me? So then I chose to give up there. I went up, I got the test, and I gave it to teacher. I'm like, sumimasen, sayonara. And the funniest thing is, again, like when most people didn't even know I dropped out of the class. So they're like, when I stood up, they're like, whoa, he finished already?
Yeah.
No, I gave up. Students, I gave up. But no, they always thought me as a smart student, so they thought I just I finished early. So I walked up, submitted it, and walked out. And the whole class, except for like one friend who knew I dropped out, knew that like, damn, he finished it in like he finished that whole test in 2 hours when I'm still on page 2.
God.
So that was after 302 is when I kind of gave up in I guess studying advanced Japanese. I still kept the Japanese minor. So instead of focusing on language, I focused more on culture. So I studied cultural communication, and I studied more of the cultural aspects of the language to finish my minor. And I essentially just became more familiar with the culture over the language. And that's essentially my experience with Japanese now. I dropped out studying the language. No longer am I trying to read subtitles or understand subtitles without it. I focused on the culture and moved on to something else. And eventually, even though as I was like, back in 301, 311, when I was struggling, I still was passionate in Japanese. That's when I actually found out a new passion for me. And that's when I focused on that. So after I dropped out of 302, I started focusing more on my new passion. And yeah, I kind of just dropped out of Japan from there.
Got it. So what was that new passion?
So it's odd enough to say this before I like reveal it, but it'll be pretty obvious once I like say like part of the hint. So in high school, when I was applying for a major, back in like 11th grade first, like what major I wanted to be. Again, I took the engineer. So like my most wanted major was to be an engineer, and I also considered what was my least wanted major. And my least wanted major was communication studies. Like I don't want to do communication studies. I don't want to do public speaking at all. I actually hate public speaking. So I went to college. I took a public speaking course, and I actually loved it.
Really?
Yeah, I was so like going into college. The scariest thing for me was that public speaking course because again, I was so quiet, introvert, never want to speak up, never did presentations whatsoever. No, never had a leadership role or anything like that. So I took that public speaking course. And I'm like, oh man, they're gonna make me speeches. I have to go up and do some talking. Oh man, and I love that class.
Wow. Why do you think
And
so? Or
I
what
don't know.
happened?
I think the fact is that I never really had any direct training with communication. So maybe I never understood that I actually like communication or like that kind of stuff. I still, to this day, I still hate public speaking. And I'll explain more about that later on as well. But generally, just getting more from communication, I'm like, I never really had any training with communication, how to communicate properly, that kind of stuff. Maybe because I would be an introverted gamer and anime fan, so I just stuck to myself for the most part. So I was never actually speaking much. But just the opportunity to like become a better speaker and a better communicator was very like kind of eye-opening. By then, I still wasn't like deciding like I'm gonna be a comm major. I was still far from that, but it gave me insight into what communication could really be about, and I just continued to think about it. So first semester, I took public speaking. Second semester, I focused more on what do you call it, my Japanese major and my GEs. By the time I started my second year, that's when I started taking an interest in business a bit. I actually declared my minor in business, international business, and I kept my Japanese major. but I felt like I still wanted to see what major I wanted to take in because I did not want to major in Japanese. Not because I didn't want to. I didn't like. I didn't lose interest in Japanese yet, but I didn't want to like make my career out of Japanese. I wanted to learn something more out of it. So I kept looking around and I asked my brother, I'm like, hey, what should I look on? And he gave me a series of recommendations of majors to take: psychology, sociology, health and science, nursing, all that kind of stuff. None of them interested me. And then he mentioned communications. I'm like, okay, interesting. Public speaking was a cool class. Maybe I'll consider it. So my second semester, I actually took interpersonal communication, like Com 110. And I absolutely fell in love with that class. Not gonna be honest, I ditched a bunch of the lectures, but in terms of like reading the content and taking a test, and they have like a lecture and activity section. The activity section is where I signed because I ditched all the lectures. And that's when I fell in love with interpersonal communication. And I started, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna major in communication studies now because I actually loved what I learned there. And like I mentioned earlier, as a communications major, I actually hated public speaking. So every time I said like I'm a comm major, and I'm like, but you hate public speaking, like why? It's because I focus more on interpersonal and business communication. I studied more of like how people communicate with each other, like forming relationships, conflict management, how to organize business or communication in a business environment. That's more what I study, like communication theories, rhetoric, not necessarily public speaking.
Got you.
So that's when I started. When I took Com 110, I fell in love with communication, and I just wanted to study more interpersonal stuff. So I just decided that I'm going to declare my major in communication studies and drop my Jambus to a minor. And by the time I finished all the prerequisites, I declared my com major in my third year. And at the same time, I switched out of my international business marketing minor and switched to a focus on marketing minor itself. So I was a communication studies major with a focus on interpersonal organizational relationships. And I double minored in Japanese and business marketing. And that's pretty much how I went from there in terms of communication. That's how I started communication, at least.
Right. That is so fascinating because I took a conflict resolution class in at Cal State Long Beach, and I absolutely loved that class.
Yeah.
Definitely, like the things I learned in that conflict resolution class, like it just highlighted so much of like just what humans do. I don't know. It was like it gave me a new perspective of like what the inner workings of like how a situation comes to be. Because you go through life and you kind of like just kind of experience it like firsthand without ever having like a full like like an understanding of what truly happened. You only understand it through the lens of like from what the knowledge but having that like you know the textbook research and the theories behind communication, but I was just blown away, and it really helped me develop a new perspective on like life. It taught me a lot about life, like and I absolutely loved it. It was so funny because I was undeclared for 2 years, and I was bouncing around Japanese, like didn't know like what I wanted to do with it. But I think at some point they were like, "Oh, do you want to be an Asian studies major?" And I was like, "No, I don't really see that's not really something I really want to do." Like I loved science as a kid, and I knew I wanted to be something in science. So I just stumbled upon what I did graduate in, which is dietetics. But I told myself I came across that conflict resolution class one semester after I declared for my dietetics course, and I swear like if I came across that class before I came across my intro to nutrition class, I 100% would have done something in communications. Because I love that class so much because I was also very introverted and I was also very shy, and I did take that public speaking class as well, actually. And for me, like I did dread it, but my experience wasn't as positive. It was okay. It was I was always nervous, but then it definitely helped my anxieties a little bit with public speaking, just because for some reason like there was one project, I think it was like literally something like I don't remember if it was a 2-minute, maybe even it was like a 5-minute presentation on something about your life or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, like 5 minutes is so much. Like, you have to. It's so much time, to like stand up in front of people. But you start to realize, like, when you're working on that project and you're actually doing it, it's like, wait a second, like 5 minutes is actually not that long. And you
Yeah.
know, um, and and it's more, it's less about being worried about like having content, but more
Hmm.
about like having a more precise message, and
Yeah.
what you can do with the 5 minutes versus like less so about
Yeah.
having the amount and quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my thing with conflict resolution. Yeah. So interesting, Okay, so that's a big change. So is that kind of like how the rest of your college experience was focused on communication with like a minor in Japanese and business?
Yeah, I studied, communication. I definitely want to focus more on like interpersonal relationships. So I took, like advanced interpersonal relationships. I took conflict management, the same course she did as well. I love that class. Even more, I pursued a mediation certificate as well. So I took negotiation and
Oh,
mediation class as well.
I that was the thing, because in conflict resolution, no wait, yeah, it was in, I think it was in the conflict resolution class, but
Yeah.
they did mention, the professor there did mention like how this whole idea of being a mediator, which was always a fascinating idea to me, because it was like a weird concept I've never thought about before, where it's like you're neutral, like you don't take sides, like you
Yeah.
kind of like, you're just kind of, that was such a weird concept for me to kind of grasp. But after some time, I was like, again, it was one of those things where it was like, if I didn't go into dietetics, I would have become a mediator. Because I love that interpersonal, I love that, you know I love all that stuff when you're
Yeah.
not in it. Because I feel like when you're not in it, you can think logically, and like you can like see like where the mistakes and where all that stuff is happening from an outside perspective. And I feel like that's one of my strengths. But when you're in the actual conflict, it's really hard to kind of parse through it, like think about it, because you're biased towards yourself. um
Yeah.
but
And yeah, that was a very eye-opening class in my opinion. Anytime I take a communication studies class, I'm like, this is very eye-opening. Just because you don't normally think of communication, just when you think of communication, like, oh, the way of communicating. Well, there's so much more to that.
one question, so because this is kind of like begging, like this is kind of begging for me to ask this question.
Yep.
um what are some of like major like concepts that you kind of like took away from these classes, like um the things like that really, these eye-opening kind of concepts, because I remembered like, well, even right now I kind of read psychology, like, because it's like
Mhm.
one of my interesting stuff. And every time I read a book, it's like, wow, like it just
Yeah.
reveals a part of like humans and their nature. And so for you, like, was there anything that kind of stuck out? I know it's kind of like on the spot to like remember
No
certain,
worries. Yeah.
but was there anything like that?
Definitely like, so well, first of all, when it comes to like communication studies, like there's two easy types of studies. There's like rhetoric and social science.
Mm.
For me, I definitely fell in love with social science, like theories behind communications. And I'm not gonna give like a lecture on some of these theories, but like some of my favorite theories were like social penetration theory. Which just like very quickly, if you guys remember watching like Shrek, remember like the onion you mentioned in Shrek. General idea when it comes to social penetration is how you want to communicate with someone and you're close with them. Like when you start like talking with someone, you talk about like, oh yeah, hi, my major is this, my name is this, I'm this old. But as you go deeper and deeper in, that's when you become more open towards like who you are as a person. You're like, oh yeah,
Mm.
maybe the second level, you're like, oh yeah, I'm an anime fan. I like these kind of anime stuff. I love playing video games. And the third level will be like, wow, yeah, I'm really into like this deep hobby, and I've been studying this very deeply. So you just get deeper and deeper in, and just kind of study of just how people like, I guess, communicate with each other and like how relationships form. Not necessarily social penetration itself as a theory, but just explaining how relationships like just develop over time and how like many of these theories apply that, like expectation, EVP, even like social information processing, all those kind of theories. Again, they just explain so much about how relationships form over time and how they develop and things you can work with. I thought that was very eye opening, and I just fell in love with these studies. I want to say like I did a 10-page essay, researching all this kind of stuff, but I did a quick Google search, Wikipedia stuff, went some websites, and was like, wow, learning about this topic is pretty cool. And I loved all these interpersonal stuff, and that was definitely when it comes to interpersonal communication, at least in terms of like my options. I definitely just loved how relationships formed, and that kind of study within interpersonal was pretty intriguing to me.
Did that help you in your own like personal life?
Yeah, definitely. This again because back then I was very introverted, quiet. I didn't know how to develop relationships, so it was very hard for me like essentially make new friends. In fact, there was always the person who would like come to me first to make introduce me. Like I was like the introvert that extrovert adopted. Essentially the Sam. Um, but yeah, nowadays I'm still very introverted. But it's more I'm a social introvert, which is why I can take like leadership, like roles and stuff like that. I can lead stuff like that. But my social battery dies down very quickly, and I just
Mm-hmm.
can't be in like parties for a long amount of times. But just leading stuff, being a good leader, all communicating, all that stuff, just things I can handle. I do love social situation. The fact that I don't like being introverted for too long. This pandemic made it kind of hard for me. My battery was just charging for way too long. I need to release some of that. But it's funny enough, I'm still very social introverted. Like the moment I went out, my battery just drained so quickly. I'm like, oh man, I'm so exhausted already at just being outside. um, but yeah, when it came to like forming relationships and having these what do you call it, leadership roles now, when it came to like forming relationships with my say like my other officers, things like that, I was much more effective than just like, hey, I'm your president. Can you do this, secretary? Like take notes. Nowadays I try to form a relationship like, hey, what do you like to do, or what are your motivations for like being part here? I like to explore that kind of stuff, form some relationships, get to know them better. Just trying things, ask like, hey, what's your favorite anime, and anime starters, or like, hey, what kind of games you play? You want to play some games? I'm a little more better at forming relationships nowadays than I was in the past, and essentially creating interpersonal bonds is one of my best strengths. And again, with other things as well, like conflict management and my mediation, which I actually do have a mediation certificate now. I'm gonna just say honestly, mediation was probably one of my most stressful classes. That was a really hard class too, to be honest. I know it's just mediation and communication, but being an effective mediator takes a lot of skill and practice and application. And like when I was taking like my mediation test, I felt like so stressed taking that test compared to like even like any other test. I felt like I was more stressed taking that mediation test than I was taking my AP Calc test. Um, that's how stressed I was, like, because you have to be kind of like you have to like apply everything on the spot and be very effective at communicating. And yeah, that was just so difficult. But yeah, generally with conflict management, interpersonal relationships, those were something that I just became so much better at, and I can just apply to my everyday life when it comes to like just relationships in general, making friends, or like we mentioned, all my leadership roles. It's been very effective in terms of handling all that.
It's actually pretty scary. A lot of the similarities that I'm finding with like you and me, because
Yeah,
I, you described exactly you described me because at least in terms of like the social introvert, um and like this whole like too much energy thing, like recharging your batteries. That's
yeah,
exactly how I felt. The reason why I uh you know the reason why some people the people that I interact with now, I tell them like, oh yeah, like I was like really like introverted and like really shy, and like I never really like interacted with people much, and they're like, what, like you're an introvert, like no way. And it's because of that fact where I'm still introverted, like where I need to recharge, but it's like you
yeah,
said, like there's it was basically at some point I just got so tired of being like an introvert. like
yeah,
I was like, yeah, like
yeah,
I have like, yeah, I did like a lot of like, I got a lot of time by myself, and like I charged my batteries.
yeah,
But there is something about like interacting with others that is like really cool, like that you don't get by like just doing stuff by yourself.
yeah, yeah,
But that whole thing with the battery is true. Like whenever I can't stay in parties too long. I like one-on-ones better. It's like something I can manage
mhm,
better.
yeah.
um and yeah, so that's like a really freaky thing. Like there's like a lot of similarities with the Japanese mediation, conflict resolution, um and the whole introverted thing. That's kind of like, that's really interesting. Um, but yeah, I totally get you. I totally get you when you say stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then interesting, interesting. Okay, so and then you mentioned one of the things that did you um going into the future, what are some of the plans that you have like heading into the future for yourself?
So just going back to what was with like studying interpersonal communication, that kind of stuff. I still was wondering like what I focus on in that. One class that I took that kind of like became my direction for next 2 years before I actually did find like my other direction was I took an event planning class for under comm class and communication studies. It was like comm 337 professional event planning. That class gave me some insight into like the event planning world, and I just eventually just loved event planning, and I thought planning events were pretty fun. So during that spring semester while I was taking event planning, I actually planned about 4 events that semester, or was either planning or involved in planning it. For example, like for my event planning class, we planned an entire event called I think it was Dig Into Summer, where we had like a bunch of summer theme events going on there. And also with esports, we planned GG Beach. I was not a major planner in that event at all. But I did help out as a volunteer, helped out with that. Anime Club, we hosted the first ever anime movie screening on campus as well. We got to host Maki on campus. The president did most of the work there, but I still helped out with that a bit. And I also work with a Japanese garden. I actually interned in a Japanese garden. My first internship was at the Japanese garden under event planning and hospitality, but I focused more on event planning. And I made the gardens first, or I advised the gardens first anime event, and it was pretty fun. So that semester it introduced me to event planning, and for the time being, I was like, I think for the future I'm gonna focus on event planning. And when I became a president of Anime Club, my goal was for do a lot of events and do cool events. Sadly, the pandemic did hold me back for that
Mm.
spring semester, and even with esports being a pandemic year as well, I could not host any events in general. So I did had to pause in my event planning career, but eventually I did find a new passion as well, which was somewhat related to event planning, and that was project management. Um, and I think I really just love project management. Maybe looking back at Anime Club and esports, I was definitely, even as a president, a project manager, managing a bunch of projects for the club. Even if it was managing an event, for example, I just really fell in love with that. So, going back to my studies again, not only did I study interpersonal, but I also studied business communication. And one class I took was business communication, Comp 220, and took
Mm.
how to structure communication in a business environment, and that was also very eye opening. To be honest, so even though I say eye opening, I kind of forgot what happened already. But generally, I remember taking that class, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And then I decided like remember like some key points of that, like how to structure communication and business stuff, and like apply it to like event planning and project management. And when I became a leader, I even applied some of that strategies I learned from business communication towards like my leadership stuff. And as I progressed forward to my 5th year, as I studied more project management, that's when I even enrolled in the Leadership Academy as well. Leadership Academy is a program on campus that's essentially for developing leaders on campus. It's normally a 4 to 6 semester plan, but because I joined my 5th year, I actually had to finish that whole academy in 2 semesters. So that's also kind of stressful, but generally getting some leadership experience and planning events was kind of like a combination of what led me to start studying project management. And right now, my goal right now is to at least plan A right now is to become a project manager once I get like a real job. I want to become a project manager for some kind of company right now. Of course, right now I'm looking for an entry level job, just generally like even just like retail, whatever. But plan A is project management, and plan B right now is to be a marketing executive. Just because I studied marketing as well. But yeah, generally, with all my studies in communication, with my experience when it comes to like leading all these orgs, and my experience in the Leadership Academy, and just generally becoming someone to like develop communities and things like that. I kind of want to become a project manager who helps out various communities, focus mainly on anime and gaming because those are just my biggest passions. And yeah, generally, that's what I'm looking toward the future. Maybe I'll be a project manager for a gaming company. I'll be a project manager maybe for an anime company, the anime industry, or I might just be a project manager for I don't know McDonald's. That's not the plan. Don't worry. But for example, a project manager for like McDonald's, where you like manage maybe the advanced things like that. That's generally something that I will be looking towards to. So McDonald's like job, but not necessarily McDonald's when it comes to like project management.
Right. That is so fascinating. What? Okay, so how would this process go? So you have an idea. So there's like an event that you want to plan, and then so you have like an idea in mind, and then do you like have to just contact like the relative like authorities like administration like relating to that event? Is that kind of like how that process would go?
For event planning.
Yeah.
Generally when it comes to event planning, to be honest, right now, I've only done events on campus so far. So most
Right.
of the things that are like security or like this major kind of paperwork stuff is actually handled by the school. It's not logistics, marketing, planning. That's all handled by me. If I'm doing like the paperwork stuff, that's actually handled by the school. So I'm
Mm.
actually not familiar with that. I would have to do more self study or take event planning classes outside of campus.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't graduate now, so I actually might plan to do so, just because I do have an interest in event planning. So as of right now, I'm saying like I don't know actually. When you, I don't have a definite answer to your question right now, to be honest. But what I'll say is that I'm gonna be looking for the answer as I study towards the future.
Right. Very fascinating. So when you were on campus and were doing that, so you just submitted that idea to like someone like who?
Yes. So you have what you call an SOD. SOD standing for Student Life Development, which are basically your advisors for like school clubs. You
Mm,
talk to them about your plans, like, hey, I want to host this cool event here. Here's what I want to generally do. Here's like a timeline, the budget, expenses, possible things like that, maybe even paperwork, what we need to do. And the supervisor will be like, okay, here's how you can do that with the school. Here's what we can help you with, fundraising, things like that, tips. SOD advisor guides you through everything. So when it comes to paperwork, basically all the paperwork has to go through the school anyways, actually, just to make sure like maybe just keep students safe, like make sure you won't get scammed by like some company when it comes to like sponsoring or like what do you call contracts and like that. So the school is generally keeping us safe there.
right.
So luckily I didn't really have to study that, so I'm so familiar with that field. But planning logistic wise, that's all by us, and the SOD advisor is more as just an advisor. They actually don't necessarily do too much involvement when it comes to our planning or logistics. That's all on us. So when it comes to event planning, I do have experience with that kind of field and planning some cool events. And yeah, I was trying to plan some events for my last term Anime Club president, but sadly, that was during the pandemic, so all of that had to get canceled. But I'm still looking forward, and I do have cool plans coming up in the future still.
Very nice. How did otaku hourly play into your college experience?
No, to be honest, I forgot about that. Um, it's because like, oh man, I hope Bertrand doesn't listen to this episode. So like when I first I joined Anime Club like first year of college, right? Uh, Jonathan Bertrand did a presentation at Anime Club, like, hey, here's what I talked about earlier is about. We have a show every Thursday, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. I'll listen to it. Sadly, the show was during like my classes, so I couldn't like listen to it fully. But I gained some interest. Attack was pretty cool. By my second year, I took a class with one of the Talker Army members. I'm like, wow, okay, cool. I'll talk with this guy, became friends. And I'm like, hey, can you introduce me to a Talker Hourly? I think I want to join. So he was kind of like my network to get inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met Beltran and I talked with Beltran, Jonathan Beltran, and he got me into a Talker Hourly together. I did a like show with him. But after I did that one show, I kind of fell off a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to focus more on Anime Club and esports, especially as I became a president. So my active role in Attack Hourly, especially during my fourth and fifth year on campus, was kind of really dead. So I kind of left Attack Hourly on the side. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Um, but generally, yeah, I joined Attack Hourly in my second year. I did some podcasts. I did some shows for them. I even did some interviews for them as well. I was one of like I was like the interview person for when we went to interview people at Anime Impulse, which is just a major convention at SoCal. And I did help out with a bunch of Taka Ari projects on the side. But generally, when it comes to Taka Ari, I wouldn't say like I was a major figure in Taka Ari, but I was definitely like a supporting cast or supporting character that pretty frequently throughout the 4 or 5 years I was on campus, and I did have fun, and even now I still help with Taka Ari even as a graduate. I actually just met with Jonathan Beltran about a month ago. We talked about Talker Alley and had some fun. And I still plan to help out Talker Alley at least for one more year. I eventually will be moving on to like my own future, but Talker Alley is still a big part of my college career. And I made some good friends there and good experience there. And generally, it was one way for me to get more familiar with the anime industry overall. And yeah, I pretty much had fun there. Not much to say about regarding our Talker Audio, but it definitely was an experience for me to have fun with and get used to like podcasting, that kind of stuff, and yeah, get me some nice networks within the anime industry as well. But yeah, overall not too deep. But I had fun.
Very nice. Very nice. Favorite anime?
Oh, favorite anime. Oh, so I actually do have an answer to that, but I have two answers. What I'll say because I have my objectively favorite anime, and my subjectively favorite anime. And what I mean by that, I say subjective because it's just more of a guilty pleasure. Like it's entertaining. It's not well written, but the characters are fun. The story is fun. It's not like a 10 out of 10 anime of all time. And then I have my objectively favorite anime, which I came for the story, the character. It's so good, got me hooked, everything like that. Amazing, probably one of the best animes of all time. Um, so when it comes to my objectively favorite anime, that is A Place Further Than the Universe. If you ever heard of that,
What was it called?
A Place Further Than the Universe,
A place within the universe?
Further Than the Universe.
Okay.
And again, generally, I'm not gonna give too long of a detail, but it's about a story about four girls who travel to Antarctica and what they kind of discover themselves as they get there, and like who they are in the world, what their goals, motivations are. And it's a very simplistic story, but it's very like heartwarming and how like they push towards their motivations. And again, like me, again, like throughout most of my early life, I was very quiet, introverted, didn't really push for much. And now I'm, I'm not really going to Antarctica, but I am, become a leader in various areas, and I kind of want to push towards my passions. And I felt that kind of synergy when I was watching A Place for the Universe. All of these girls pushing towards their goals as a journey to Antarctica, and I thought that was just very nice and very beautiful. And it just became my instant favorite anime objectively of all time, and I just love the anime. And yeah, I would recommend it to everyone. A Place for the Universe. If you're listening, please watch it. It's available on Crunchyroll.
I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna watch it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one, but I'll definitely check that out. And the subjective one.
Oh man. I'm gonna be judged when I say this out loud. But subjectively, my favorite anime is called New Game. I'm not gonna recommend this to be honest. New Game is just a bunch of cute girls making video games. And you see why subjectively like guilty parts like, oh, the cute girls, and they're making video games as a gamer. I'm like, all the girls are pretty cute. And in the anime, they're all having fun making games. They're gamers. They have fun making video games, that kind of stuff. And generally, just a fun slice of life about girls making video games, and I just enjoyed it. It's not like the best writing. The characters can be fleshed out a little better. Story can be developed a little better, but it has cute girls in games. So like you got me there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why I say subjectively is my favorite anime. I don't often recommend to everyone. When it comes to like recommend anime, I always recommend my objectively favorite Place for the Universe. But I can't, push aside that New Game definitely has a huge impact on me, and I just absolutely love the anime despite its flaws. It's just entertaining, the most entertaining anime I've ever experienced.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean it's all about it's um your experience with it. And if that had like an impact on you like that, like that's a great anime.
Yeah, even the main character had similar motivations to me. Like I remember the Place for the Universe, similar motivation stories. The main character in New Game also has the same motivation. Like, she wanted to get into gaming, but I wasn't too sure how it was. Became good at art. She found out she's good at art, and pushed forward to become an artist in a game company. And I kind of want to do the same when it comes to a project manager for like whatever field I want to be in.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just felt that synergy. So that's why I actually love the anime as well.
Very nice. Very nice. What I never really touched on this, but why do you think you liked anime so much?
To be honest, my reasons for anime changed a lot like as I watched anime. Like at first I only watched anime for the social experience because again all my friends were watching it, so I just wanted to be part of the crew. Eventually, second reason why is because I actually absolutely fell in love with slice of life anime. It's very relaxing. It just felt like so nice. And they tell you a lot about life in general. Again, one of the cool things is that you can even nowadays you can see like the interpersonal communication between
Yeah.
them. I thought it was pretty cool, and that was nice as I was quite young. Then eventually I moved on to a new reason why I liked anime. I'm not going to go into detail, but to say it's kind of inappropriate. So I'm going to move on my fourth reason, um, which is because I just found out the storytelling they had. I think anime was a pretty unique narrative, and I just loved how a lot of stories were told through it. And I don't think I only experienced that with. I'm pretty sure a lot of American media have it nowadays, but I'm talking like the kid-oriented stuff or like more targeted to like preteens or teenagers around like maybe 13 to 18. I don't really experience the same kind of storytelling I see in those kind of series, at least in the mainstream series, compared to I see in anime. And again, like with Place for the Universe, I've never experienced that kind of storytelling in like American media. Maybe there's out there, but it's not like easy accessible compared to like what I see with anime. Because Place for the Universe was like one of the more top animes within the anime community, and I just absolutely fell in love with the anime.
Y- That is true. Yeah. Like definitely that um adolescence audience um media. You don't really get that a lot in American, because I know there's like kid shows and cartoons,
Yeah,
but like I it doesn't hit the same
I feel
at all.
like most American media is focused either on action or comedy.
Uh-huh.
Uh, they don't really explore the other genres as much. I feel like action comedy is like the biggest things I see in mainstream American media. Of course, it might be in like the more obscure parts of like or less accessible parts of American media, but it's really hard to find those kind of stuff compared to at least for me with anime.
Right. That is true. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way. Like there's like superheroes and hero
Yeah,
movies, but they're definitely not like slice of anime. Hey, don't really. There's not like. Is there even like a genre?
I don't think slice life is an American genre to be
Yeah, no,
honest.
that's very unique and unique to anime. Uh,
Yeah,
but like you said, that I love slice of anime. Like just kind of seeing that, like you said, the interpersonal,
yeah. There's a lot more focus on
daily
their personal, yeah, daily lives. When the action
character
is like, oh,
development.
we're gonna fight. Comedy or focus on laughing. Rom coms, slice life have more focus on those kind of like in personal relationships that I want it very simplistic. Like, drama is cool and all, but just seeing like the daily lives going on and observing their interpersonal relationships is like what makes me happy, to be honest. I still watch action here and then, comedy here and then, even drama. I love those shows as well. But slice life and rom coms are definitely like my biggest anime categories.
Most definitely. Okay, I think we hit. Oh, I've been asking this question. I've been really. It's a rather big, deep question, but
Yeah.
I like to ask the question of like, how are you the hero in your story?
Oh, that's an interesting question. And to be honest, I kind of have a different answer to that, to be honest. And the fact is that I personally want to say that I'm not the hero in my story, to be honest. And for example, I just like to see myself as just another character in everyone's story together. I feel like everyone's story contributes to each other. We're all part of our own narratives. I don't really see anyone as the main character, to be honest. I see as my story. Maybe I have a arc that focuses on me as a storyline, but I'm not necessarily the main character. We each contribute and develop each other throughout our lives. Like I'm not alone in this. What helped me become better was my mentors or the people I become mentors for. We each contribute to each other's story. So whenever people say like the word hero, I don't necessarily see myself as the one true character of my story. I just see my story as everyone else's story in this one big story, and I just have the story I follow along, and I support their story. They support my story. We're all main characters. We're all heroes. Maybe there's a villain there, but we're all heroes for the most part. So I'm not going to answer your question directly. Like I don't see myself as a hero. I see myself as a character in everyone's story. If you're okay with that answer.
I love the answer. I've like you said, I've never. I mean, I've only asked it a handful of times, but I like the unique answer because I totally see that. Like you're based a lot on like community, and
Yeah.
and you've done a lot of work with community building, and a lot of your passion is kind of connecting people. So
Yeah.
that answer just seems so you, you know.
To be honest, I didn't think about that when I answered it. I just like, for me personally, I just don't like attention. I'm not really an attention person. Even as like the president of multiple clubs, I only like show off to my close friend, like, yo, I did all this resume stuff. Yo, what did you do? But when I say like my resume in general, I would just like, yeah, I help lead communities. I don't really like to bring too much attention to myself. I only like to show off to my closest friends because yeah, I like to be better than them. um, but yeah, I'm not really an attention getter outside of my friend groups, and that's why I don't really like to consider myself as a main character or hero. But
Hmm.
also, what you explained, I'm like, wow, that definitely is like just contributes my like story overall. I like that example you gave or analogy you provided for me that came with my story, and yeah, that definitely does suit me actually.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it's just when you, when you just have like when you're moving in a direction and you have a goal in mind, um, everything kind of falls into place. And I think
Yeah.
that it's even more hilarious that you weren't thinking about that, and then it just so happened that your story is like that. So it's like kind of like your unconscious, like unconscious thoughts that came to surface, like as you were creating that answer. It makes it all just goes together as it shows.
Yeah.
So I have this thing where it's I think that if you live a life according to your values that follows your values, you're generally more like happy because
Yeah.
if you're authentic and genuine and you're trying to pursue like the things that you genuinely enjoy,
Yeah.
it's just so much better for everyone. It's so much better for you and so much better for the people that you get to um that come across you in your sphere of influence, because everyone kind of sees like, this person is not fake, this person isn't pretending to be who they are, like who they're
Yeah.
trying to be. They're just them and they're doing their best um in the hopes of their dreams and aspirations, and you're a perfect example for that. I think, like you had a goal. You weren't like the best, like you weren't like you didn't have all the skills and the leadership and all of like this at the very beginning of this thing, but you
Yeah.
stuck out with it and you learned along the way, and and at the end of it, like you did good work in the organizations you were part of, and then you became like better because of that.
Yeah.
And that's a great story. That's a great story, man. And I mean, it just I mean, this is like exactly what I was like, you know, kind of looking for. Like these are like you're the type of person that these organizations are like lucky to have. Like you were talking about like when you were mentioning esports and you were kind of like anxious or like about like not knowing enough about esports, but it was your other skills that really shine through, like, is
Yeah.
the most important part there. Um and so I think you did a great job there, and all the projects that you're going to be in charge of moving forward. I mean, that it's so exciting, like to see, like because you had such a good track record and
Yeah.
of slugging it out when you don't you know even when you don't exactly like have everything like set, and especially the adaption thing. I really kind of like that, like learning aspect of it, like how you're learning to adapt, because that's kind of like life. Like life has its ways to really break down like plans.
Yeah.
So it's just really you know it's good to see that acknowledgement, because it's like um it just bodes well for the future. It's very based in reality, and your expectations can be tampered by that reality, so that you increase your chance of a successful outcome,
Yeah.
which is always great. Less suffering, hopefully, for you, and and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I mean, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover, at least for this one. We went over the your time as the in the anime club, esports, a little bit on the attack hourly, kind of like how you kind of came to be like where you're at. I
Yeah.
really love that there was a lot of things. There was a lot of progression stuff. Like things that started off from pure passion. Your interest in the flute, your interest in math. Those things are. It's really interesting because I mean, it's really interesting because some things come into your life and sometimes they go. And sometimes they come back maybe, but it's always like a you just don't know what life is gonna give you, I guess.
Yeah, but to be honest, like even though like I kind of gave them, it still helped me realize something. Like one of the things that this society is kind of run by specialists and people who are like really good at specializing in things. But obviously, after finding all those stuff, but noticing that I had some constraint in each of those fields helped me realize that I'm more of a generalist, and that's where more of the community studies and project managers lie, like their specialty in. Um, so like like when we kind of fell in music, one thing I didn't know is that I was good at leading people around when it came to like music stuff. Even with math, I was able to like form study sessions together. So generally like finding out those kind of stuff, that other aspects that in music or math or even Japanese was what helped me lead me towards like, wow, I'm actually pretty good at project management. And as a journalist, you often specialize in many different fields, but you're never an expert in them. So I'm still pretty good at music. I'm still pretty good at math. I'm still pretty good at pretty much everything. Like as a journalist, I'm actually like I like show off a bit. Like I can pretty much do anything in this world at a very basic level. I'm not an expert in anything, but if you give me a task, I could promise you probably in a month, I could probably do them at a very slightly higher than average level. And just not an expert. I'm not an expert in anything, but failing music, failing Japanese, failing all that kind of helped me lead to as a community study, that's a very generalist major, and that helped me lead to like, yeah, this is my specialty. Is that not having a specialty is my specialty, but being able to be very effective in all these stuff and being able to lead that kind of stuff was my specialty. And yeah, failures do lead to experience, and they help me understand, like, gain new insights into like what I'm actually good at, and that was project management or community development.
Definitely. Um, I think that it only helps to help connect you to a wider audience. Just because
Yeah,
like you know it's just better to know about a lot of things. Just because I mean, in some aspects, like you said, like specialization is important. Leading like the field.
yeah,
But but there's also something to say about like a person that just has their hands dipped in a lot of different subjects because um in a way like they're uniquely placed for something um I should say like special, like they have this special ability to like tap into these different reservoirs to
yeah.
for whatever they want, I guess, like you were mentioning, like whether
Yeah, like
it's
exploring our motivations, interesting like that. Generally, like as me with my interpersonal skills as well, I can generally figure out what motivates people and like work towards that, especially with their what skills that they actually have. And as a project manager, that's one of the most important things to consider. And being able to be generally familiar with all these fields helps you like understand how to like work towards a motivation with those skills a little more efficiently.
right. So interesting. So do you think it helped you, so you were talking about motivations a little bit, so do you think like it's able for it helps you able to kind of like convince people or persuade people to move in the direction, like a common goal, I guess, to help?
Yeah,
Okay.
common goal is definitely one of the biggest things to work with. Of course, there's always like sub goals that each individual has, like their own motivations as well. So I would look into their own motivations and help them go towards the individual goal. But I help that individual goal, like each person individual goal, lead to a common goal that helps us go to like a common project objective.
That is so fascinating. Yeah, I like that because I have this thing with like I like exploring the idea of like human potential.
Yeah,
And that's probably why like that fuels my motivation to like maybe go into the mental health field, whether like a therapist or like psychologist,
yep,
because I see like a lot of potential in people, but sometimes there's like certain obstacles that they run into, and
yeah,
they just don't know how to get over that. Um, and so it's really interesting, like what you were talking about, like understanding their motivations, because you know if you both have like agreed to like you both have this kind of common goal, but
yep,
something's just not working out, like there's something there like there that's just not working in favor of that goal. So then you come in there and you do the work to kind of you know push uh push kind of that other person in that direction so that everybody is will benefit from it.
yeah.
That is fascinating. I really want to like look into that a little bit because yeah, that is really interesting. Your whole story about this whole project planning thing is really interesting because Yeah, I don't know. This is really interesting because it's like the things that will like push new ideas forward. You know,
Yeah,
like all these like, I mean, when you think about it, everything is like a project. Like that's like worthwhile. Like
yeah,
anime,
yeah,
like
yeah.
all the animes, like that's a project of their own. Like
Mhm.
every game, every
Yep.
it's all projects, and it had to be managed. You know, and you know that you're like definitely a person that seems like would do great in that.
Yeah. When it comes to like project man, I just love exploring people like motivations. And one of the things I like to do is provide open communication, like room to even criticize or even innovate. That's when like some of the best ideas come out. Like when I was testing out earlier, with my team earlier, like right now I'm actually trying to create like a cool event for campus prevention for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I had them explore some cool ideas. And when I gave them the room to explore a new idea for like a virtual space, one of my teams came up with something, a new way to explore that concept that I would never have done. And if you were stuck under my planning plans, we probably would never explore that idea at all. So when it comes to exploring motivation interests, it's also a very good idea to also see like what ideas they come up with. So I always push for innovative ideas and sometimes even criticizing my ideas so we can see like maybe I'm not perfect whenever it comes to plans. So when everybody criticizes stuff, they also come with new ideas, like maybe not this Jay, but maybe this. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't see it that way. New insight is always very interesting. And again, what I mentioned earlier is leadership. One of the most important traits is communication, and allowing that kind of open communication for criticism and innovation just provides so much for a project. And that's what I love when it comes to like with my type of leadership style. My type of leadership style is more of a communicative, like open leadership kind of like style, compared to other people who are more kind of rigid or I guess more strict. I prefer them more open. Like I'm not really like a leader, but more I'm like a guidance person. Like I guide people towards a goal, and I unite us in their common goal. But I'm not necessarily like their boss, if that makes sense. Even though I am their boss.
Right. And I think people are attracted to that type of leader because it gives them like a voice in their direction, and
Yeah.
the more people feel like they matter in the direction of a project, the more invested I would feel
Yeah.
that they would be in it.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's all super. That's all super cool to hear from your leader ship experience kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, man. We've been at it for an hour and 50 minutes.
Oh wow.
You've been such a fascinating person to talk to because I haven't come across this many similarities with an individual, at least with speaking with them,
Yeah.
because yeah, like not only did we go to the same high school, same college,
College,
anime, Japanese,
somewhat communication.
esports,
Oh, that too.
communication. I mean, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
To kind of like see introvertedness, social introvert.
Yeah, all those kind of stuff. We're also like very good looking, very similar. Yeah.
Add that onto the list.
Yeah, that too.
uh, but yeah, man, I absolutely loved this conversation.
Yeah, it was fun.
I learned a lot. And you know, I'm sure the viewers also would learn a lot about what it takes to be a good leader. And the that Cal State Long Beach has been lucky to have had leading their organizations. Um, but yeah, man. Any questions left? Anything you need to be said before we wrap up here?
Just generally, as general tips, again, communication is one of the best assets to have in life. I know, like, you generally just, you communicate every day. I don't need to study that stuff. Honestly, if you want to focus on your major stuff like that, generally that's okay. You are a specialist in your own field, but just getting a better sense of communication skills and a personal business communication, it can do a lot for your life, especially when it comes to like group projects. You're gonna experience a lot of them throughout college or even your work field. How to properly schedule these kind of group projects, motivations, all that kind of stuff will just help make your life a lot more fun. especially when it comes to relationships as well, which you'll form a lot of friendships or even lovers. Communication is key. Will help you a lot. And being a computer studies major, communication very important. And yeah, and always do your best. Like me, when it came to esports presidency, I was far from a good president. Had no idea how to run esports. I know like some of the board members are probably like, why is this guy running the club? He knows nothing about gaming. But push forward. Do what you're good at. Again, leadership was more of my skill, project management. I put trust in my team to handle the esports portion of that, and they did it pretty well. So again, don't be afraid to push forward. For me, very quiet. My early life was a huge contrast from my life now. Not only was I very quiet, but I also hated anime as a young kid. Look at me now, president of anime club in college, big change. So you never know what your life's gonna lead towards to. But always just keep pushing forward and do your best.
Oh.
I guess that's my general tips. Yeah, have fun, yeah, everyone.
Very nice, very nice. How can the viewers find you, Jay? If you have.
If you do want to find me, generally, right now, again, my tag is Shortcast. You can find me on Twitter. You can kind of find me on Twitch, but I'm not really as active there, stream wise. I do have an Instagram as well, but if you want to follow me on Instagram, I would say just be more familiar with me first. I'm more a person who wants to value close relationships before you can follow me on Instagram. But if you want to reach out first, again, reach me on Twitter on Shortcast, Twitch. What else do I have? Other platforms. You can even find me on Discord as well. I don't know. Anywhere, I see generally Twitter again, Shortcast, HSHIROCAST, Shortcast on Twitter. And then if you want to become good friends, interpersonal relationships, again, you can follow. I'll lead you to my Instagram, Discord, Facebook, and we'll have fun there. But Twitch, Twitter, you'll see me there. Yeah.
Got it.
I'm very quiet introvert. I don't want too much attention. But yeah, best way to contact me is either to Twitch. To Twitter, and I do have my email there as well. So you can contact me on my email there as well.
There you guys go. That's how you find Jay. He's a great guy, as seen on the podcast. And but yeah, very nice. I'm looking forward to all the projects that you're going to head in the future.
Yeah.
With all your experience and all your temperament also with leadership, it definitely seems like people are gonna love you as their boss.
Yeah. I hope so.
And that's gonna lead to like great projects, I'm sure.
Thank you.
I always say at the end of these, I always would love somewhere in the future a follow-up episode, to kind of see, this is kind of like a time mark in time. Like this is like, you just graduated, still trying to find your bearings out there after college. And so this is the start of your arc in your one of your character arcs, I would say.
Yeah, just a side character, not a main character.
Right.
Not a hero.
But definitely later I want to get the full scoop on the different projects you're working on, especially hopefully after all this COVID stuff has passed away, and you can do more organization. Yeah,
waiting to plan events,
definitely to build that community ultimately. So I'm sure we're gonna see more of Jay out there doing great work for the anime community, for the gaming community, and I look forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So that's going to wrap up the 16th episode of the Gabriel podcast. I had my guest here, Jay Anthony Galiza, former anime club president, a former esports club president at California State University. He was a great interviewee, and I look forward to everything he's going to produce. So have a great rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.